speak with you now to Sergeant Shannon, Sergeant Stephanie Shannon, who was in Desert Storm. Hi, good afternoon, Sergeant.
Hi, how are you?
Mind if I call you Sergeant?
That's fine.
So here you are in Desert Storm. You've written a book called Battling the Storm Within, and we're going to get to that in just a moment, Sergeant. But how did you end up in Desert Storm? A volunteer?
Yeah, I signed up as a reservist, actually, and I was 5 months out of basic and AIT, and my unit was activated.
And how long were you there?
I was over there for 8 years. I was assigned to 180th Transportation Company, and we drove 14-ton tractor trailers, hard water, ammo, Patriot missiles. It was a very, very hard, strenuous position.
So you heard a lot and saw a lot, huh?
Yeah, the things I saw, we're on the road quite a bit, so I went through several different countries, Qatar, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates. So we was on the road all the time. And, we more or less, with our unit, we were at the back end by the ship dock, because that's where they would load our trucks up at. And we had threat-up Scud missiles all the time. So we were constantly on alert. So that was one of the main issues we had to deal with being on the road, was possibly being hit with chemical warfare, which actually it did happen. It happened to another unit that was only 10 miles away from us, another transportation unit, and it killed 28 people.
So let's try to imagine this for people who have never been in the service or that situation. Every day, every second, something could go off.
Oh, yeah. Every day. You're always... One thing about it was 110 degrees weather. And it was extremely hot. And there was no air conditioning. The trucks are really old, and you're basically like in this sauna. And then at night, it's 60 degrees. And over in Saudi Arabia, you could not wear short t-shirt. You had to wear a full uniform with the full boots, with the full socks, with your hat. You couldn't be out of uniform at any time.
Can't even imagine.
Oh.
Now, you say you were in that part of the country for 8 years?
No, 8 months.
8 months, okay.
We were assigned for 8 months.
8 years, that's really scared me.
8 years. I did 8 years. My whole enlistment contract was 8 years.
8 months must have seemed like 8 years when you were there.
Oh, it was unbelievable. What it seemed like to me was that the most stressful part was we didn't know when we were going home. We were needed. Our transportation unit was something that was basically in high demand, and it was something that they were telling us at any moment, hey, we could be assigned up to 2 years. It depends on how long the war was.
Sure.
So that was one of the major stressors there, was not knowing when we're going to go home and what kind of state of being we're going to be in if we got there.
So, Sergeant Stephanie Shannon, when you got home, did you feel like a different person?
Yeah, what happened was a few things that happened over there besides that. I experienced MST, which is military sexual trauma, and which was it was a lot of women getting raped. 1 in 3 women in the military are raped by their fellow soldiers, and I was one that experienced sexual assault and sexual harassment. And that was one of the most difficult things, too, was working over there and being in a hostile living environment. We also had an issue, too, where the first female POW was taken, too, and she was a truck driver. So, finally surviving in that environment and getting home, I just wanted to be away from these people. I never wanted to see them again. I wanted my life back, but I was different. And I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't realize that I suffered a psychological trauma.
Now, not only did you have to deal with the enemy that you were there to help your fellow soldiers, but then you had to deal with the enemy within. I did a whole show on that a few months ago, and I'm astounded how much goes on in the military, and it happened to you. Was it someone who was a higher superior, or just...
Yeah, it was my leader. And what you're dealing with, you deal in a chain of command. You can't jump the chain of command. You have to report to your first squad leader and whoever was your leader. And if that was the one that was harassing you and mistreating you, you basically stopped. I was threatened all the time with Article 15, disobeying the lawful order. I was put on higher details. I felt trapped. And the only way I escaped from it, I went to sick call a lot. I would go to sick call and complain, which was true about my back, my feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I got away from them. So I survived. And even some of the females that experienced rape, there was no justice in that. It was downplayed, and this is how men are, kind of thing. So yeah, we had a lot of psychological trauma and things that occurred during my time in service.
And we hear a lot about, and your book is called Battling the Storm Within, and obviously we understand why there was a storm within. We hear a lot about post-traumatic stress syndrome. Did you not know you had that for years?
No, I didn't. Actually, when I got back, another thing, I don't know if you know about the Gulf War illness.
I've heard about it, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the Gulf War illness is another issue, and that's something that just came out last 20 years. We were exposed to toxins and chemicals. They had the old well fires going on, depleted uranium.
Mm-hmm.
We were shot up with the anthrax vaccine. We didn't even know. We had PVT pills. They had these white pills that told us we had to take that would prevent if we did have a chemical exposure, will protect us from that. And that basically damaged our cells. Well, I have over 300,000 soldiers that was over in the Gulf War have all kinds of multi-symptom illnesses, sleep disorders, chronic pain. That's what I dealt with, too. I dealt with fibromyalgia. Some of us are diagnosed with MS. So it's just not coming out after 20 years of research. So I didn't know I had that either.
So you talk about a battle there and a battle when you got home. You Agent Orange with Vietnam, you had the Gulf War syndrome, which Desert Storm. So you got home, so you must have had a whole different personality. What did you do for all those years?
Well, what I did, I detached from my family. I came back. I had a associate's degree in fashion merchandising. I just wanted to come home. I left my reserve unit quickly. I transferred to another unit. I was assigned to another unit. It was more peaceful. And it was hard because I loved the military. I didn't want to leave it, but I just wanted the pain to stop. So I didn't seek help, even though on my exit interview I told them, I was having these nightmares and all these problems. They didn't offer any services for me. So I just figured, okay, I got to stay in the military. In order for me to stay in the military, I can't be sick. I can't have these mental health problems because actually it's assigned, quote unquote, as a weakness. And you don't get promoted if if you're considered a weak link. So I kind of just dealt with it. I just looked at it as, okay, I went through something, and I just kind of threw it over my shoulder. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I isolated from my family. I went to college and finished my bachelor's degree in psychology and just figured, I would help other people. That's what I found satisfaction in. So I just kind of avoided those thoughts and pains, and, I just ran from it because I didn't really know what happened. I just, it was just really complex for me to understand.
So you had a battle there and you had a battle at home, and it looks like you'd wake up, and when I'm dealing some of the signs of depression, and there was very little joy in your life, but you still went forward.
Yeah, I was really unhappy. I felt that maybe it was just situational. Maybe I just, need to find a good job and, meet somebody nice. I was married and divorced twice. I experienced domestic violence. I had a lot of problems. A lot of, I would say, inner conflicts and interpersonal conflicts with people. So I really stayed isolated. I didn't really deal with people too much. I didn't share so much. So I went back to the VA in '96, and because I had a back injury too. I had back problems, all kinds of problems. And I requested help. I said, hey, I'm feeling all this kind of stuff and whatnot, and they could not find my records. They said there's no, I said, oh, okay. So when I applied, there was no evidence of record. So it was based upon my burden of proof was upon me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to prove it. What do I prove? So they diagnosed me as having a adjustment disorder. And I said, well, help me adjust. So I never got treatment. No one ever said you need to go to this or that. I was never told what I was qualified for. I was nothing. So I didn't look sick.
When you have other fellow soldiers that maybe you kept contact with that could have verified you were you?
Well, the difficulty is that most of us, we all speak first. I think we all dealt with it our own way. Most of the people I went with, everybody moved across the country. We were not connected anymore. All of our friendships were broken. I mean, it was no connection. And the ones I tried to connect with, and then when I talked about it, they didn't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? So I would say, remember when this, and they would get really upset with me. So we all were, dealing with it separately. So I really didn't have